What is up, team? It has been a minute. It's been a minute. Back in the saddle here. I know. No. Don't hold the applause. Bring it on. Listen, this is a question that any and everyone in the industry is getting right now, which is basically just like, hey, when do higher rates that we're seeing on the mortgage side, when does that start to affect home prices? And so a lot of people have looked at my most recent analysis and said, yeah, but nothing's really happened quite like that before. Or yeah, maybe it does look really strong underlying, but it looks good until it doesn't anymore. So part of the reason why we won't see a crash anytime soon is because there's too many people that are bearish. And it's impossible for a market to crash with so many people bearish. In fact, typically when a lot of people are bearish about something, whether it's a stock or bonds or real estate, it usually means that it's going to go up. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with house prices right now, but it's a helpful thing. It's a helpful thing. So let's look at some data. You don't have to trust me. Derrick Evans here, VA Home Loan Specialist, NMLS 155010. Call or text me if you want to buy or refi or have fun. Go to church. I'll go with you. All right, let's take a look. We're going to pull this down. You know how to get a hold of me. You don't need to see me anymore. That's enough of me. Let's just look. Now, I haven't dove into this in a long time, but I'm going to take a close look right now because, everything you've been hearing on the news, everything you hear about inflation has always been, this is the worst in 40 years. This is the worst in 40 years, worst in 40 years. Haven't seen this since the early 80s. It's this huge spike right here, okay, that they're talking about. This is when interest rates went from kind of like cruising along in the mid sevens down here. I was just kind of cruising along, took a big spike higher, created a new norm, right? Normalized. And then we saw massive spikes, huge inflation. Interest rates got to 18.5%. Interest rates went to 18.5%, right? That was a bad one.
All we want to do is pump you up.
Now, the big question is, if higher rates equals lower home prices, then and there's no other factors involved, and that's just what it is, then this should probably tell us something here, right? I mean, if we go back and we look, let me get this preview screen out of the way here. So let's go back to, what is this, 1971, April 1971. And then let's run it from April 71 until, let's even take it to like 80. Let's give it a little time, right? Give it a little time to soak in. Let's take it to 84. So let's go April 71 to 1984. That takes us from the normalized period through the entire enormous, almost tripling of interest rates, and then gives it a couple years even past that. Okay, so let's do that. That's from 71 to 84. Okay, this is real estate value. Sorry, so this is the average interest rates, 30-year fixed rate average in the United States, according to the Fed. Okay, St. Louis Fed. This is, according to St. Louis Fed, median sales price of houses sold in the United States. Okay, that's what we're looking at. Let's go down here to 71. There was a recession here. And so it's just in 71, we were just outside of a very short recession, and average home price was $24,300. Let's see what happened here. We went through another recession here, and home prices climbing. We got another recession here in the mid 70s. Home prices climbed that entire time. Home prices are climbing. And this is right when the rates really started to spike, right here, right in the 80s, in the early 80s. You had a little recession here, a tiny dip in prices there, which looks like about a 3% pullback, 3% on the pullback ahead of the recession. Through the recession, real estate values went up. Okay, we go into another recession, the early 80s. This is when interest rates went to the 18% mark. So remember, if we go back here, there was an initial spike right here in this first recession, which didn't really do anything to real estate. Then there was this spike here in this first recession right around 1980, and then a second recession that happened again just a couple years later, which was more violent. And you see interest rates are all over the place in that period of time, okay, the early 80s. Well, what was happening with real estate values in the early 80s? Let's see, there's one little dip right here. It went from 70,400 70,400 to 66.4. So about 5,000. So 5 over 7 is about a 7% pullback. So you got about a 7% pullback on real estate values during that huge spike right there. But then just continued charting higher and higher and higher and higher. So if I went ahead and I said, you know what, let's dial this down a little bit. Let's take this. We really just want to stay focused on, the early 80s. So let's zoom this in so we can see these dips a little bit better. Okay. And I'm not trying to yell at anybody, right? Okay. I'm just showing you what the numbers are. But you tell me, what does that chart look like? That is the time frame in which interest rates. Here, let's just give them the same time frame. I'll make this real easy on everybody. And this is all free, by the way. This isn't like a paid site or anything. So, okay. So look at what's going on here. Get us out of there. You can see it's easier to sort of chart them based on the recession, the shaded areas. So when you go back and forth, you can kind of see okay, hey, that one is this first shaded area. That's rates. And then this is prices. Prices are headed in a direction. The further you zoom out, the more you see it. I think what a lot of people are trying to do is they're trying to catch these little dips that we see in real estate. These little dips. The big dip that we got in 2008 isn't going to happen ever again. Hopefully the last video I made makes that very, very clear. There's no way. It will never happen like that ever again. It's literally impossible. Too many safeguards have been put in place. The bank was working against themselves. None of that stuff's going to happen again. Wall Street buying all those bonds, selling all those bonds, creating all those bonds can never happen again. Not in this lifetime. Not for us. Maybe 100 years from now when everyone's forgotten about it, maybe they'll do it again. But it's not happening. So what you're really counting on, if you believe that there's a dip coming, is you're going to try to catch one of these. You're going to time one of these perfectly. But I just want you to make note of this. And this is really important for buyers. This is really important for real estate professionals to understand. Whether you caught that dip exactly or not, in the end, didn't matter, did it? What direction were home values headed? What direction are they still headed to this day? It's higher. That's what's happening. Are there pullbacks here and there? Sure there are, of course. But you don't need, this is one of the beautiful things about real estate. You don't need to be a genius. You don't have to go in and find this perfect, absolutely genius entry. You don't need to. All you have to do is give time, and it works itself out. And the reason for that is simple. And I probably said this a million times, but there's a limited amount of something, increasing demand for it. We've never seen that equation look like it does right now. It is insane how few homes we have in comparison to how many we need. Maybe Elon's robots will help build us some houses, but that's 10, 20 years from now. What are we doing in the meantime? By the way, if you haven't seen that, I'll post a link of that in the description. Watch the TED Talk exclusive interview with Elon Musk. He talks about how there's going to be an age of affluence that's created by the machines, the robots that he's creating, where everything will be so insanely cheap that it'll create this massive age of abundance, and that essentially translates to deflation. So we're talking about massive deflation, and that'll be the time when everyone wants to get into cash and do all that stuff. Trust me, Wall Street will play that. We will talk about that. If I'm alive, we'll be trading that. We'll be trading that, and I'll let you know. It's years from now, so let's not worry about it at the moment. But I'm kind of making a joke. I'm kind of making a serious point. These little dips that you get don't really seem to be correlated to the interest rate, do they? They really don't. You got a little dip here before that recession. Okay, the dip was here. The dip was before the rates went up. So that kind of doesn't make sense. This one here, the dip actually happens in the middle of the recession, which, isn't too unusual considering, certain, especially elongated recession like this, might have been a lot of concern, just worry, just general problems. But notice when you enter the recession, we're at 69,200, and when we exit, we are at 71,600. So even when we look at this entire period of the early 80s recession here for average real estate median sales price of houses in the United States, they were higher upon exiting the recession than they were upon entry. Well, this is just the data, you know. You will notice though that rates were higher here, 16 on the way into that recession, and then closer to 14 on the way out. So from 16 to 14, so they went down about an eighth of what they were. So that probably didn't hurt. But you can see that when we've had massive spikes in interest rates, we haven't seen real estate values go down. And that is also true for right now. However, let's bring this back out to, if I just put max, it'll just take us there. So right here, this spike that we've got going on right now in rates, you can see this happening over here. That we don't have enough time. I'm going to talk about now just how the market is holding up, and we're going to look at a little bit more data. We're going to talk about interest rates as well, but you can see we've had this spike in prices. So we have this consolidation here, right, where we renormalized the median price above 320,000. Now we're up for 11,200. Then we have a little pullback between Q3 and Q4 from 411,200 to 408. So a little less than 1%. A little less than 1% pullback right there. And we're going to see what this looks like. The data for Q1 2022 should be up relatively soon. So we'll get to see where that number is. My guess is it's going to be, you guessed it, higher. But I could be wrong. Let's see. We'll see. We don't have to guess on that one. The data will show us. So we've seen the spike in interest rates that has been going on really, since the beginning of the year, since January. How long does it take for these things to flush through? Well, let's look at it. Let's just say the average life cycle of a transaction is 30 days. Well, if you get into escrow, on January 1st, you're locking your rate on January 1st. So by February 1st is when your deal closes and it fits into all these averages. The data becomes official and starts fitting into these averages, but your rate was actually locked a month before. So when we look at these correlations, when we look at what these rates are, what prices are, it's lagging data. It's lagging by, let's call it a month on average. Some transactions are quicker, some transactions are longer, but let's just say a month. So the data is lagging by a month. Well, we're almost through 4 months of the year so far. We've had nothing but rising rates, and so far home prices haven't been affected. I mean, if you want to call it a tiny pullback, maybe, but nothing crazy has happened yet. In fact, let's take a deeper dive here into the Altos data. And you can see here that, in fact, in the recent month, the market action index has jumped from 89 to a 93. So it heated up. Now, I did tell you, and we've been saying, when rates jump, that typically causes a lot of people to initially flood in and get off the fence, right? Because now the clock is ticking, and a lot of buyers feel that. Like, if I don't buy a place this week, next week rates will be higher. It will cost me more. They're feeling that. They understand that. It's there. It causes some buyers to exit stage left. And, what are you going to do about it?
Check, please.
Here you go, sir. Good luck in the rental market, So all that is still definitely going on. But when we look at a couple things here, we're just going to I'm going to show you a couple pieces of data. We always look at the same piece of data from the same source. I highly recommend that if you want to track anything and get good at it. Price per square foot is what we're going to look at. Days on market, I like to take a look at that. And you just see, hey, this is going back to basically the beginning of the year. The very first of the year, we were at an average of 48. Now it's at 20. I mean, stuff is just flying off the shelves. Almost no price decreases. Very little relisted, down to 8%. That was at 17%. Inventory, though, look at this. Inventory's crept up. You notice that? So inventory's gone up from 207, which is just dastardly low, to 362. That's a pretty big increase in inventory, and the market needs so much more than that. So maybe the slight increase in inventory, you could say, is a result of interest rates. Maybe that's something you could point out. Hard to say. We can't use this rental graph anymore, unfortunately. It just isn't tied correctly to the correct data. I found out the hard way. So let's look at price per square foot. This is the holy grail for understanding what's going on. We talked about the last time I pulled this up. Remember, we had a lot of separation from the 7-day moving average price per square foot versus the 90-day. We had almost a $50 difference there. And what we've noticed is every time there is that separation, we tend to see it regress back to the 90-day average and tends to trail along there. And then it gets separation higher, comes back, separation higher, comes back, separation higher, comes back, separation higher, and now it has come back. Now look, as of April 15th, Friday, the 7-day average, still higher, so it hasn't come all the way back yet, but it's on its way, $693 a foot. 90-day average is $687. So almost $700 a square foot is what we're looking at here. And this graph is the best one to look at. It shows you what's really going on. It shows you what people are paying, what people believe that it's worth to pay for a square foot of house in San Diego. And so this still looks good, but we're being tested, and that was what I want to bring up. So I'm not a perma bull, okay? I'm just telling you what I believe based on what I see and what I understand. Yes, there is buyer fatigue, no question. There is less super hyper motivated buyers. It's like pulling teeth to get people to fill applications now. Way less number of applications. That all is going on. So let's not, ignore that. It's for sure happening. But is it a death blow though? I don't have any reason to believe that at this point. I will tell you this, as we're going to shift over. That's price per square foot. That's probably the most important one. Let's actually look at inventory too while we have this up. So you can kind of see a little bit of higher movement here, right? Just like the inventory just ticking up slightly. You see the big curve here, the 90-day average, it's sloping higher. It seems to be rounding out, kind of coming back up. So we'll see if that tends to play out any further from there. We've seen it slope up before, and typically when that happens, it just slopes back down. So we'll see. We'll see what takes place there. But I do want to show you this. So this is mortgage bonds. You'll notice now we are tracking yep, you got it, 4.5% coupon. I do believe the average rate is going to get into the 5s here real soon. In fact, as of last week, it was right at 5. Look at that. 5 exactly. So 4.5% bonds getting sold off. And while this chart is about as ugly as it gets, the only thing that we have going for us here is that we haven't had a total breakdown of the current range yet. So we can kind of say that this range was initiated at that point in time. And we'll know when the bottom is in, when we find a range like this that we can stay in for a while and actually make an exit to the high side. And that's what we haven't had. So all these little ranges that we've tried to make here, we have always exited to the low side every time we made one. And there's been some that were really good. Like this one right here was like, oh, could that be the bottom? It was just too early to be the bottom. It's too early. I don't think we're there yet. I'm still holding out. I mean, I believe at 6.5% is where we'll see bond buyers come from every direction. And the bond buyers will send mortgage rates lower, but it's going to be a little while. However, that's what we're going to look for. And I could be wrong, and I really hope I am. We're going to look for sort of a sustained new range like this that breaks out to the upside. I don't think the big buyers will push the buy button, just my 2 cents. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger until we see the Federal Reserve give clear guidance on when they're going to push the sell button, because they're supposed to sell a bunch of these bonds. And if they do that, that could really send rates higher. Now, I hope, again, that doesn't happen in a violent way, as we definitely do not need that, but it is possible. So let's just, overall, we just have to concede a few things. Number one thing is higher rates has never led to lower home prices. It has caused things to happen. It does have an effect on the market. But historically speaking, even when rates went from 7.5% to 18.5% in the course of a few years, we did not see real estate dip during that time. Think about that. And that is the particular period of time, this period of time right here, that we keep referencing. They keep saying, hey, we haven't had inflation this bad since then. We haven't had, this is 40 years since we had inflation this bad. That's what interest rates did back in that time. So the period of time that we're getting compared to the most, which had insane interest rate shift, almost 2.5 times interest rates more than doubled, we didn't see a slowdown in real estate. So I can't get on board with the idea that higher rates equal lower prices, although I know it makes logical sense, and I know a lot of people believe this is true, and I know a lot of people think the market is going to pull back, and it very well may. But you're not going to see anything major. There's nothing catastrophic here. There's nothing major here. If you get one of those 3 or 5% pullbacks, I think it's an absolute pull the trigger situation. But if you're sitting here waiting for a crash, if you think these $700,000 homes are going to be $500,000 again, I don't want to be the person who tells you that that's going to happen, because we'll just be wrong. Not going to be that guy. I was going to pull up a tweet from Meet Kevin. He said that he was saying the Federal Reserve had issued their expectations for interest rates, and that they think that in 2023 mortgage rates will be 8%. And he said something like, good luck with housing or whatever. And what's really interesting to me about guys like him who, they're so trusting. It's like, bro, the reason we're here is because the Federal Reserve lied to us. So you're just going to instantaneously trust their data about predictions in the future? Come on, bro. We have to be willing to do the work ourselves. And I'm willing to do a lot of it. You can go check this stuff out. I'm going to give you the links to all this stuff. I'm also going to give you the link to that Elon Musk interview, which you should definitely check out. And at the end of the day, I hope it helps you make an informed decision. If you need help with a home loan, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. We got kids to feed over here. I got 3 of those little guys. Help me out when you can. I'll help you out, get you a great deal, no lender fees, low rates, all that stuff. So if you have a question, also, by the way, we're going to do rates later this week. But if you ever want to submit your scenario, that's all you have to do right there. Whoa, look at that. Fun time to play with that. All you have to do is email me, text me, loan amount, purchase price or home value if it's a refi, credit score, and if it's a condo or detached, and I'll send you a custom quote. Last person who did this, my rate was 4.25. The rate that they were quoted was 4.99%. That was just yesterday. So this happens all the time. Saving people tons of money. That's what I want to do. I want to give you a good deal on a home loan and give you great service and great information. That's the whole purpose for me doing what I do here. So let me know where I can help. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon.